The first trial I ever covered was the then notorious Shoeshine Boy trial. It was the trial of 4 men who were accused of abducting, raping, and killing a 12-year-old Shoeshine boy named Emmanuel Jacques. And I've been in the courtroom probably more than most lawyers in Toronto, most criminal lawyers. I've been doing it on and off, mostly on, since 1979, 1980. So I have a little bit of experience. I have worked in order for the Globe and Mail, the Toronto Star, the Toronto Sun, the National Post, back to the Globe and Mail, and now the National Post. Hi, I'm Christie Blatchford, the courts columnist for the National Post. I'm here with my dog, Obie Blatchford, as I formally call him. And in the background, I'm afraid you may hear the shrill cries of my one-eyed cat, Otis, or perhaps catch a glimpse of Fatso Flanagan, who is the other cat who lives with me. And both of them, it should be noted, terribly abuse and boss around the dog who outweighs them by 10 times. It may not be a law that we have to be careful about protecting people, and it's certainly not true that our aim is to protect people, but in the course of doing our jobs, I think that there are very few of us who would ever deliberately, willingly put somebody else's lives at risk. He says this all the time, Duffy does. He says, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not legally trained, I'm not a lawyer. Honestly, he must have said it 6 times today alone. I swear to God, in the morning, for 2 hours, he didn't draw a breath. He just talked. Then he did Mr. Harper's voice. And there was a female staffer doing what the little woman should be, ironing his shirt. Now, aside from that being quite a ghastly vision, the only thing possibly worse could be Mr. Duffy in an undershirt. He was preciously close to blowing up with righteous indignation. With that special Mike Duffy mix of gossip, outright bitchiness, and always with a sense of hard-done-byness on his part.
Are you freaking kidding me? Taking a Senate seat was an act of self-sacrifice.
A whole day of listening to Mike Duffy, and honestly, my head is about to explode. She was right, she is right, they are wrong, end of story. This is from Ed the Sock, of course. I love Ed the Sock. If I'm ever unsure on an issue, I read #Christie Blatchford. I read her opinions and know that the opposing viewpoint must be the sensible one. Well, that's good. It's good to provide. I provide a public service. I'm giving people an easy way to decide what they think about an issue. Christie Blatchford has always been a nasty anti-feminist. Well, I don't think so. I recognize that this is a perception that young feminists may have of me, but I think my writing and my commentary for the past 4 decades, God, dare I say it, that long, would show that that isn't so. I am a contrarian, certainly, so I don't take positions merely to be contrary, but I find myself uncomfortable when I'm on the majority side of things. So I don't disagree that there's an element of that in some of what I do. But I would define myself as a feminist for sure. I mean, I've always been pro-choice, I've always been pro-gay rights, always, for as long as I can remember. I've been, I don't know what the other watermarks are. But anyway, I don't think it's true. I may be nasty, though. That might be true. That's the greatest benefit of the criminal courts, is that you are presumed to be innocent. And it's the only place in the modern world where that is so. Everywhere else, you're presumed guilty. I've been around the block a long time, a few times, and the I believe women trope is so contrary to my own lived experience, as we say now. I know that women and men are completely equal. Men lie, and so do women. And sometimes they lie for reasons we will never understand. No gender has a patent on the truth. And I find it condescending and patronizing that people should be told they must believe me merely because I have a set of breasts, great as they are. And I'll tell you why I wrote the book. I wrote the book because in an age of increasing transparency, where every institution in our society, including newspaper writers, including the police, including all manner of education systems, everyone needs to know everything now about every institution which governs them, from government to the unofficial government, which is the judiciary. And the judiciary remains the least transparent, most inaccessible, and most unaccountable institution in the country, probably ranking up there somewhere with the Senate. And it was at the now long ago criminal trial of Mike Duffy, who was of course fully acquitted and is a fine and wonderful human being. But when that trial was going on, the judge in question had been late at this point every day but one to coming to court. And I was staying at the same hotel as he was. And remember, I was paying his salary, as were you. And he couldn't make it to court on time, but I could. And there came a day when I was in court, waiting like a lunatic for the thing to start. It was late again, and it suddenly occurred to me that sitting in judgment over an unelected, unaccountable senator was an unelected, unaccountable judge. And that really is when I got motivated to write the book. We did not cover ourselves with glory this time around, people. It was mostly a mean, small-minded campaign filled with apologies that were meaningless, dug up old scandals, rumors of others. I'm happy to be rid of it. I have shucked off the shackles of the election. I am free. I have to say, generally speaking, I prefer covering the trials of killers and rapists to covering politicians. But it's not because, of course, they're unpleasant people. And in fact, the thing that most strikes me is that as we pull into every one of these little towns that we've been to, or big cities, and then at the campaign rallies and pep rallies that we go to, what the politicians say is mostly meaningless. It's pap. But there's always this wonderful glimpse into this fantastic country. I always judge a place by playing a little game with myself. Could I live here? And yeah, in every single one of the places I think we've been so far, I could live there. And you see all these kind, decent, perhaps misguided, but nonetheless sincere people. You meet lots of great Canadians, and I can really understand what inspires an ordinary person to run for political office for the first time, because you meet all these good people and see all these dreadfully cute babies and the nice moms and all of that, and you'd kind of like to try to do something to make their lives better. So I think we should all remember that as the campaign unfolds, is that most of us are pretty good, and most of the politicians, that some of whom I'm covering now, are equally good, or they started off that way anyway.